GDPR, or the General Data Protection Regulation, truly stands out in the realm of data protection for several reasons. First, it empowers individuals with unprecedented control over their personal data. You have the right to know what data is collected, how it's used, and even the ability to request its deletion. This is a game changer in a world where data is often treated as a commodity. Moreover, GDPR imposes hefty fines on companies that fail to comply, creating a strong incentive for businesses to prioritize data privacy. It's not just about protecting data. It's about fostering trust between consumers and companies. The General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, is a comprehensive data protection law in the European Union that aims to enhance individuals' control over their personal data. Here are the essential compliance requirements under GDPR. Organizations must identify and document a legal basis for processing personal data. The bases include consent, contract performance, legal obligation, vital interests, public task, and legitimate interests. If processing is based on consent, it must be freely given, specific, informed, and unambiguous. Organizations must have a clear process for obtaining and managing consent, and individuals must be able to withdraw their consent at any time. Individuals, data subjects, have specific rights under GDPR, including the right to access their personal data, the right to rectification, the right to erasure, the right to restrict processing, the right to data portability, and the right to object to processing. Organizations must provide clear and transparent information to individuals regarding how their personal data will be used, including purposes, legal basis, retention periods, and third-party sharing. Collect only the personal data that is necessary for the specified purposes. Avoid excessive data collection. Personal data should only be collected for specified legitimate purposes and not further processed in a manner incompatible with those purposes. Data should be retained only as long as necessary for the purposes for which it was collected. Organizations must establish retention policies and procedures. Organizations must demonstrate compliance with GDPR, including maintaining records of processing activities, conducting privacy impact assessments when necessary, and having appropriate policies and procedures in place. Incorporate data protection measures into the design of business processes and systems. Data protection should be a default setting. Organizations must implement data protection measures throughout the data processing lifecycle. Data protection by design means considering privacy while creating new processes, systems, or products. Data protection by default means setting the strictest privacy settings automatically and ensuring that only necessary data is collected. Organizations must have procedures in place for detecting, reporting, and responding to personal data breaches. If a breach occurs and poses a risk to individuals' rights and freedoms, it must be reported to the relevant supervisory authority within 72 hours, and affected individuals must be informed as well. When transferring personal data outside the European Economic Area, organizations must ensure that appropriate safeguards are in place, such as standard contractual clauses or adequacy decisions from the European Commission. Conduct data protection impact assessments. When processing is likely to result in a high risk to the rights and freedoms of individuals, particularly when using new technologies or processing large amounts of sensitive data. Certain organizations are required to appoint a data protection officer to oversee data protection compliance, especially if they process large amounts of personal data or sensitive data. Provide regular training and awareness programs for employees to ensure they understand their obligations under GDPR. Non-compliance with GDPR can result in heavy fines, up to $20 million or 4% of global annual turnover, whichever is greater. Fines depend on the severity and nature of the infringement, and regulators have discretion in applying penalties. There are stricter rules for processing sensitive data, including health information, racial or ethnic data, genetic data, and biometric data. Processing of this type of data is generally prohibited unless certain conditions are met. Key actions for GDPR compliance include conducting a data audit, reviewing contracts, updating privacy policies, implementing security measures, preparing for breaches, and staff training. Data protection impact assessments should be conducted for processing operations that are likely to result in a high risk to the rights and freedoms of individuals. Notify the relevant supervisory authority of a data breach within 72 hours if it is likely to result in a risk to the rights and freedoms of individuals. Appoint a data protection officer if the organization engages in large-scale processing of sensitive data or monitoring of data subjects on a large scale. Maintain detailed records of processing activities, especially if the organization employs 250 or more employees or engages in high-risk data processing. Implement appropriate technical and organizational measures to ensure and demonstrate that data protection principles are integrated into processing activities. Additionally, GDPR sets a global standard. Countries outside the EU are adopting similar regulations, recognizing that data protection is a universal concern. In essence, GDPR is not just a regulation. It's a movement towards a more transparent and accountable digital landscape. It's about putting people back in control, and that's why it stands out.